This is widely regarded as the best squash racket ever made and is the holy grail for all racket collectors. Today I'm going to be finding out if the Dunlop Jonathan Power Ice Elite is worth all the hype or if people's nostalgia is getting the best of them. The Dunlop Elite range has always been known for its amazing blend of feel and control, while also having more power than almost any other traditional head-shaped racket. The range has been around for the last 2 decades, but the Ice Elite is the one that started it all, and the most popular of which, the Jonathan Power Signature Series. As with previous reviews, I'll be judging it based on 5 criteria: power, control, feel, manoeuvrability, and looks. Each criteria will be rated out of 10 at the end of the video. Just to clarify what each means, power is all about how hard you can hit the ball and how effortless it is to hit with pace. Control is about how easy it is to hit the exact target you want consistently, as well as how precise and stable it is when hitting a static ball. Feel is about how the ball reacts off of the strings and how much ability you have to influence what the ball does. Manoeuvrability is about how easy it is to handle and move through the air. Looks is my personal opinion of how appealing the racket is aesthetically. Similar to my last video reviewing Ramy Assure's Airstick 130, I'm going to have to be extremely careful not to hit too tight to the sidewall, as this racket is extremely rare, so I don't want to break it. When first holding and hitting with the racket, I'm struck by how comfortable the balance is to use. It's quite head light, which makes it extremely manoeuvrable and allows you to generate good racket head speed from a short swing. This can be a bad thing, however, if a racket doesn't have enough natural power off of the strings, as it can be difficult to get the ball deep enough when under pressure in a match scenario. This is an issue I found with the Dunlop Sonic Core Ultimate. However, the Ice Elite produces an unbelievable amount of power, which means that the head-light balance complements the racket perfectly. In fact, this racket generates more natural power than I've ever felt from a traditional head-shaped racket, while also being head-light. I think this is mainly due to it having just the right amount of flexibility in the shaft and handle to whip the ball at pace without losing out on any control. It's easy to see why someone like Jonathan Power, who is famous for his hold and deception, would enjoy using this racket, as it allows for unparalleled power from a short backswing while maintaining the feel and bite when taking the ball in short. For the official solo test, I started with some fast volleys to get an idea of how it feels at pace. The manoeuvrability and power made this really easy, as the fast racket preparation was no issue despite me still having a slightly dodgy arm. The ball came off the strings quickly when hitting flat, which allowed the ball to stay very straight. This could partially be due to the fact that the previous owner had it strung at £24 for extra power, while I'm more used to having my racket strung at £27 for more control and feel. It seemed to be very effective for hitting at pace, and it felt like I barely had to do anything to generate that power. The best word I can think of to describe how it feels for these shots is that it's nice and snappy. You're able to deliver the racket quickly and snap the ball through the court with purpose. This will again be due to the flexibility in the shaft. It really gave me the feeling that it would perform extremely well in a match scenario, as you could cause your opponent a lot of trouble with fast volleys from the midcourt without sacrificing on the feel and control. Speaking of which, next I wanted to test out the racket's feel and control with some short balls, starting off with some drops off the bounce. For these, despite the low string tension, the feel was unbelievable and it felt like you could hit the ball with complete precision and accuracy. Whether it was cutting the ball in softly or stunning it in with some pace, it felt like I had the ability to fully influence what the ball did and control it in the exact way I wanted to. It was a true joy to hit these short balls with this racket, and it's something that I could do for hours without getting bored. While you watch a few of these drop shots, it would be great if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. Also, comment down below your favourite squash racket of all time. When transitioning into the volley drops, I had a similar feeling. It feels like the quality is fully in the hands of the player though. The racket does a perfect job of letting the player control it in the way they want to, without getting in the way. This is almost the complete opposite of a racket like the Dunlop FX 128 Pro, where you have to mould your game around the racket and let it do the work for you with its head-heavy balance. This does lead on to the only real criticism I have of the racket, which is that it has a slight bit less stability in the racket head than the latest Sonic Core Elite, but this is only due to the Ice Elite's lighter balance. This means that you have to control the racket head more yourself, as I mentioned before, rather than the racket doing it for you. This can lead to slightly less consistency for anyone who isn't a top level player, as your technique is under more scrutiny than with a more stable head heavy racket that can replicate a swing perfectly every time. However, this racket makes up for it in all the other ways I've talked about previously, and a racket with a heavier head will lose out on a lot of the deceptive and recovery capabilities that this offers. The natural power it produces also compensates for this characteristic, and means that a player of any level would still be able to play well with it despite the slight instability. I want to make it very clear that it isn't unstable compared to most rackets. I'm just comparing it to some top rackets with a bit more weight in the head that are obviously going to be more stable while sacrificing other attributes. As well as this, the instability has no effect on how it feels on contact with the ball, as it has an extremely clean strike on contact. It's only the follow through that it impacts, as the racket head doesn't automatically go to the target without any human interaction. For the straight drives, the effortless power combined with the head-light balance makes it incredibly easy to dig balls deep out of the back corners without leaving the ball too short. It feels like you can straighten any shot and hit a recovery length from anywhere. The long drop and straight kills from the back always ran in tight to the sidewall and were extremely consistent and precise. It feels like you have options in any scenario with this racket. You're never locked into a certain shot because of its versatility and adaptability. Then when it's time to crunch the ball with some power and aggression, the Ice Elite has your back too. The crisp and clean ball striking when hitting a heavy length felt extremely satisfying and easy to achieve. As I mentioned previously, the combination of power, control and manoeuvrability allows you to make late decisions with each shot without compromising the quality. This also makes it extremely good at hitting cross courts from behind you around the back of the service box area too. Generally, I find that a racket is either suited to an open style of squash with good racket head speed, manoeuvrability and deceptive capabilities, or it's good for a closed traditional style of play with good stability, heavy hitting and precision. This racket feels like it's able to excel at either style, which is truly unique. The versatility of this racket really is something unique, as it manages to perform at a top level in every category without having to sacrifice anything. It's clear to me that this is the reason that so many people have it down as the best racket of all time. It can suit any type of player and works well with any style or technique. I wasn't able to do a match test for this racket due to not wanting to risk breaking it, but I've hit with it enough times to get a good enough impression to rate it. Now let's get on to the official scores. For power, I'm going to give it a 9.5. Now, I haven't felt a traditional head-shaped racket with power like this. The ball comes off the strings like a rocket. It's so clean, it's so crisp. On top of that, you've got the fact that you can generate more racket head speed with it being a bit headlight. So more racket head speed, natural power off the strings. I think it generally comes from the flexibility you get in this shaft, and it gives it a bit of whip. I would say that sometimes that flexibility can come at the cost of less control, but my control score is going to be 9 out of 10 for this racket, so still very high. I believe there aren't many rackets that will have more control than this. I would say, like I said earlier in the video, my only slight criticism is because there isn't much weight in the head, it lacks a tiny bit of stability. But we're not talking about it being unstable. We're talking about compared to, for example, the Dunlop FX 128 Pro that has a really heavy head. It's not going to be as stable as that through the air just because there's not as much weight going through it, which can affect consistency, particularly if you're not a top level player. Because you have to do more of the work. The onus is on you to be able to make the racket do what you want it to do, rather than the racket doing it automatically. That means it's far more adaptable, and you can do more with it if you have the ability to. And that brings us on to feel, which I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I can't really explain how nice this racket feels. If you have access to one, I know a lot of people don't because it's so rare, you need to have a hit with it. It's unbelievable. I could hit drop shots with this all day and it just feels so nice. It's crisp, you get a bit of feedback and bite off of the strings. You can play fast in short, with a bit of a stun. You can cut it in and carve it in with a lot of control and feather it in. You can just do anything, and it really it has that quality where no matter what sort of player you are, it will suit your game. Which, if you've watched my other reviews, a lot of those rackets, I say, look, you have to play in a certain way, or it wants to play in a certain way. It likes certain shots or a certain style of shot. Whereas this, it really feels like you could do whatever you want with it. It's adaptable and it's versatile. And part of the reason for that is the fact that it feels so great with those precise shots, with those flare shots, with anything that's creative. And it obviously served Jonathan Power very well in those areas too. And that brings us on to maneuverability. And I'm going to give it a 9.5. It's headlight. Now on the packaging, it actually says it's an even balance, but to me it feels headlight when using it. I think there definitely are rackets that are more headlight, but then there's something about the way this moves through the air as well, because it's a traditional head shape. It just feels like you can prepare it very quickly. It feels like I said before, it's very adaptable. You can change your shot choice at the last second. You never feel locked in to a decision. You always feel like you could change at the last moment, which again suits someone like Jonathan Power down to a T with all his holds and deception. So the maneuverability is going to be a 9.5. Now finally we get onto looks. Now obviously looks is a personal choice, it's very subjective. I really like this. I think the colour's amazing. I think it's a 9 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 9. There are better looking rackets out there, but the only thing that I think could make this look better, I don't know how it would work, but for some of the rackets that I think look really good, they have a few more intricate decals on them. So one of my favourites was the Technofiber Supreme NG130, the one that was like shiny green, like metallic green, Alistair Walker's one. The version with the metallic green with the white kind of design on. I don't know, were they dragons or something? And I thought that looked really cool. The other one I really like is the Dunlop Biomimetic Elite with the black and green, partially because that's like my favorite color combination. The black and green, I think it looks really good. So I'm a little bit biased there. But I think if you don't think this looks good, then you probably just don't like squash rackets, to be honest. And then, well, I can't help you really. So it's going to be a 9 out of 10 for looks. What I would say with regards to the power and the control rating is I would probably swap them if the strings had a higher tension. As I mentioned earlier, the strings that were strung in the racket I was hitting with, the previous owner had strung at £24. Now, that is relatively low for me these days. At the moment, with my Sonic Core Elite, I string at £27, a bit tighter, and you'll get a bit more control. And I feel like the same thing would happen with this Ice Elite. Well, not this one, the one I used earlier. I think part of the reason it was so powerful was because of the lower string tension. And if it had a bit higher, it would have a bit more bite on the ball, a bit more consistency and control, but at the cost of a little bit of power. So I'd probably swap the scores. In that case, it would have been control 9.5, power 9. Just invert them. So, yeah, either way, that is a ridiculously good score all round for this racket, and it really is the best racket I've ever hit with. Now I've gone through all the scores, let's just conclude this video with me saying that the hype is definitely real. It feels amazing. It is almost beyond belief how nice this racket is. And I know a lot of people might think it's just nostalgia talking when everyone says that this is the racket they want, this is one that they'd love to get their hands on. But after hitting with it, it's just incredible. Like, I don't know how they made this racket 20 years ago and it still feels better, in my opinion, than any racket on the market today. And the other thing is, I've said before about how if a racket has a top tier rating let's say for power or control or something like that, there has to be a cost somewhere. It loses out somewhere else. Like with the Dunlop FX 128 Pro, it had a really high rating in power and control because of the stability in the head and the head-heavy nature of the racket, but it had terrible maneuverability. This somehow is the exception to that rule. It isn't bad at anything, and not only is it good at everything, it's top tier at everything. That's just ridiculous. I'm not saying that just to create hype, just to get views. No, it is unbelievable. I don't even know what to say, really. It is just the best feeling racket ever. If you ever get a chance to hit with one, let me know in the comments how it felt. And if you have hit with one, show your support in the comments, and you can relate to my experience here. You can relate to my joy and excitement at showing you this racket. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content. And I'll see you next time. Bye.